Welcome to 10,000 Africans podcast. My name is JD Tarpa, and I am your humble host. Our guest on the show today is Bryan Obonyo. He is the founder, CEO, and creative mind behind the Ubunifu Space. Make sure to subscribe to 10,000 Africans podcast on iTunes, on Google Podcasts, and on our newsletter. Please rate us and review us on iTunes and share this podcast with your friends and family. You can also donate to the podcast through our website, 10,000africans.com/donate. Even a $1 donation from you would be appreciated. Welcome to the show. Bryan, it's good to have you on.
Thank you for having me, bro. Appreciate being on here. Thank you.
So I was introduced to your content a couple of months ago by a friend, and I find it very engaging. It brings the audience in. Anyways, what does Ubunifu mean?
So Ubunifu is a Swahili word, and when translated, it basically means creative. So when you translate the whole sort of name of the channel, it basically stands for the creative space. So when we sort of were coming up with the name of the channel, my whole aim was to sort of, I didn't want to just call it like a standard name. I wanted it to have some sort of meaning that someone hears it, they're like, oh, okay, what does that mean? I want to try to find out what that means. But still, when they do find out what it means, it has some sort of meaning behind what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do is showcase the creative arts of young Africans across the continent, both in the continent and also in the diaspora as well.
You were born in the UK, grew up in the UK, but you make regular visits to Kenya. I imagine that those back and forth trips and the influence of your parents influenced the starting of it. So what's your story in terms of bringing you to start the space?
Yeah, you could say like my mum started taking me to Kenya from the age of 2, and we used to go like every year, like every summer holiday, school holidays, we'd go over to Kenya. Like, it got to a point, I remember I was like 8 or 9, and I was like, why don't we go somewhere different, like Disneyland? And like, I think it was like my dad's reason was that, you know, once a year you get enough money to go on holiday, and I don't want to go to Disneyland. I want to go to see my family, so I'm going to go Kenya. But yeah, no, like, those sort of trips, even though young age, you don't really realize, but it helps you keep in touch and sort of like understand your roots, your connections. And as well, what helped a lot, I had like young cousins who were similar age, and we used to talk and all that. So fast forward now, got to 2016, and I must have taken my 2 friends with me to Kenya for the first time. So David and Ian from the channel. So Ian's from Uganda and David's from Ghana. But this was David's first trip to Africa in general. Like, he'd never been to Ghana before. And it was really like eye-opening for me, because whereas the other time I've been with my family, this time I was just with my friends, and like I really got to go and just like explore and discover with my cousins. And being out there, I got to actually like take in the music, like sort of going on nights out and stuff like that. And for the first time in a long time, I actually felt like, because for a long time Kenyan music never really touched me or hit me. So I was never like, oh yeah, this is amazing. So that trip I went to, I was like, oh wow, like there's actually really good music coming out. And as an African in the UK, you'll find that the diaspora is made up largely of West Africans. So when obviously Afrobeats was growing, the main aspect that helped it grow was the whole UK diaspora really embracing the Afrobeat sound, and that allowed it to grow. And when that grew, that was the only sound from Africa that was coming out. And for a long while it was okay, because you know that's what you think. Okay, but then it got to a point. I remember when I came back from that trip, I was like, Africa's massive. Like, there's so many different regions, there's so many different cultures, there's so many different sort of like aspects, but all we tend to hear or push out to us is Afrobeats, and I feel it's wrong to label the only music coming out of Africa as Afrobeats. So that started my whole research, and I was going deep. Like, I was researching Kenya, mainstream, and then even underground, finding so much various sounds, and then started to touch different regions. And then I remember I put the idea to David, because I was like, David, like, we should do a reaction channel, because apart from like, you know, the mainstream sounds we hear, we don't actually know what's coming out from I don't know what's really coming out from my country, Kenya. And I was like, there's something wrong there, as being someone from diaspora trying to represent Kenya. So we put the idea, and then David was like, we should try to create a group, because I think the whole 2 people thing is sort of played out a lot on YouTube, so it's not something new. But if you try to incorporate a group of people that are actually good friends, not just strangers, it may be something that's actually quite funny. And so went along with that idea, got Ian, Tonye, Sade and Monique together, and then we just started.
And with the platform, obviously it is growing. You have about, I think, almost 100,000 subscribers now, right?
Yeah.
And over 12 or 13 million views. I mean, that's incredible, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So over that time period, I think it's been just over a year and almost a year and a half now. How do you think you've grown as a person and your team has grown? In terms of that relationship with the audience.
I feel like in terms of growth, we've definitely been able to learn a lot more about different cultures, different aspects of countries that we would never have known about, even just on the sort of the surface, because at most you may know about a country, but then you may not know about sort of the different tribes or different sort of languages and stuff within there, or the different trials and tribulations that have gone through in those countries. And I mean, I think although these artists are trying to push out creativity, sometimes they can be held back by the people that are trying to govern them, and which is unfortunate. But I think the one video that helped really spoke volumes to us in terms of like helping us learn knowledge was the Questa Wale song Spirit. So I don't know if you've seen the video, but amazing video in terms of storytelling. And the amazing thing about it was that as people came in the comments, you just learned more and more stuff about the video that you never really sort of thought through. And it's made us learn about, stuff we weren't aware of. Obviously we knew about apartheid, but even more stuff in terms of aspects of apartheid in there, which was really sort of like informing for us and helped us really grow and be like, wow, like it's actually amazing how much hardship different regions of Africa go through, which you may not be aware of. If you look at news channels in our own individual countries, like let's say Kenya, Liberia, what you'll find is that they report initially about what's ever happening in their country, which is fine, but then the next thing they're probably going to report about is what's happening in the States or the UK. But you'll never see them really reporting about what's happening in other regions of Africa, and you'll never be aware of that. And that's, I think, that's one great thing about Africa Matters, and I think that's also a thing that we've been able to learn about through our reactions of different regions, which has been great. And it's an amazing journey, and that's, I think, for us has been a really impactful thing in our journey on this channel, which has been able to learn more and more about people and what they represent.
And I like the fact that you said, you've learned that everywhere you go is different, and you know how we classify Africa.
Yeah, exactly.
When you go to different countries and different regions, you realize that even neighbors are very different from each other. So with regards to the channel, you guys are obviously growing. What's next as in terms of, you're hitting the 100,000 mark? What's next for you? What's the plans for the future? I mean, for us, this channel obviously is about exploring and being able to discover about each other that we may have not known about in terms of the continent. And for me, when starting this channel, our main aspect, our main goal was to create that, in the long term, create a platform that represented Africans and would allow Africans to tell their own stories and not being through like a Western gaze. So for us, it's really about being able to portray and showcase different creative arts of young Africans, whether it be in music, whether it be in film, whether it be in like theatre productions, script writing, novels, stuff. Because there's so many creative. I mean, unfortunately at the moment, I can only speak for what I've been able to research within Kenya, and I find there's such a massive scene in terms of creatives doing amazing work in all different types of field, and I want to be able to create a platform that enables more of these people to be showcased, because unfortunately the medias that we have in a lot of some of the countries is that they push out certain faces all the time, which neglects a larger majority of people. And it's unfortunate because all these people have different stories to tell, and like the media, unfortunately, the way some of the media are set up, it doesn't allow them to tell those stories in a way that puts it out there. So being able to create a platform in that essence is what we're trying to aim to do. So I mean, short term for us, it's going to be a lot of new content coming out in terms of shows, podcast discussions. We're going to be launching hopefully a video service regarding music. That's still in the planning, but more information will come out soon. But there's a lot of things happening, hence why in the last couple of weeks you haven't really seen us been posting as much, because we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. So being able to film has been quite limited in that essence, but it's needed to be done now, because if we delay it any further, we won't be able to get this sort of plans and project up and going. It's good to see the growth, the expansion, and plans for the future. And on the business side, on starting up, there are a lot of people who are listening or watching who want to do their own thing, take that initiative. What's your advice to young people out there, young Africans who whether it's in the diaspora or at home, who want to take initiative?
The first thing I always say is that when it comes to the idea, it has to be something that you feel passionate about, because if you're just doing it for the money or anything like that, it's not going to get too far, because there will be a lot of tiring nights, long work, like a lot of stuff where it's like, oh my God, like this is really... But if the passion's there, it will allow you to push on and push further. I always say when it comes to business and stuff like that, the first thing you should always look for is solutions. That's what business are, solutions. How can you find a solution for a problem that's happening at the moment? Like, look within your lives. Like, just look at basic things. What can you do? What within your life would you want a solution for at this current moment? That's why stuff like the iPhone have grown into the sort of brands they are, because they looked at our lives and said, what can we do to try and make our lives easier, and that's how you should look at business. And once you find the idea, I always encourage people, write down the idea. Don't just keep it in your mind, because you can keep it in your mind and 2 days later, you know, when you're talking to someone and you're like, oh, and it just goes blank out your mind. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So always write down your idea, and whenever any ideas or new ideas come, just write it down. Take a note, whether it be a note on your phone or actually like on a notepad. Make notes of it, and then the next thing is act on it. Like, once you wrote down and say, how can I get to that point? And don't be afraid to even look within your circle. Some of the most important players of what you can do are within your own circle, and identify people's strengths within your circle. Not, you can't do everything. Do you know what I'm saying? You need people around you that can assist you to make you or your idea and brand grow further. And there's nothing wrong, there's nothing to be ashamed of that. We are human at the end of the day. People have different strengths. So just identify who may be better at doing this and who may not, and that's how you'll enable yourself to grow as a group or collective further on. And the final thing is, don't be afraid to fail. Like, you're always going to make mistakes. It's not always going to be something that will be straightforward and, you know, something it will be that, oh, straight success. There's always going to be a lot of stuff that are going to go wrong. But it's just have the clarity of mind that you know where you want to take this to, you know where you want this sort of idea or concept to go, and you just keep going along with that and with the mindset of where you want to take it, and that should help you get you through. But at the same time, I'm still learning, so
we're all still learning, but that's incredible advice. And they say the day you stop learning is the day you stop living. Before we go to our final question, how can people connect with you if they want to? Where can people find you?
Okay, I'm not even really good at this point. So if you want to find me, you can find me on my Twitter, which is unbryonknown. So that's UNBRY and then KNOWN. You can find me on Instagram, which is Bryan Obonyo, so BRYANOBONYO. And then obviously you can connect to us via the YouTube channel. So obviously on YouTube, search up the Ubunifu Space. So THEUBUNIFU Space. Also the same on our Instagram, the Ubunifu Space, and Twitter is just the Ubunifu Space as well. So you can all find us from there.
If you had 10,000 Africans at your disposal with expertise in every field, what would you do?
I think, in terms of having 10k Africans all over, spread across, I think what I would do is identify, obviously, like I talked about before, identify the strengths of the different sort of 10k Africans, and as a collective from different regions, put those strengths. So if there's someone that's strong in sort of like infrastructure and sort of creating ideas of infrastructure from these different regions, I'd put them together from those different regions and they can discuss ideas, because like you talked about earlier, people from different regions have different experiences, have different history, but these conversations where you can put them together with one main goal, which is obviously creating infrastructure and an idea for that, but having their different sort of histories and their experiences put together will create something that allows to unite and help a system that works for everyone as a whole, because they've been able to input their different sort of ideas and concepts into one main thing. And I think for me, the main thing, the whole collective I'd want to do is to help grow and unite Africans from all over within the continent and also in diaspora, because I feel so much time, there's so much spoke about how different we are, different upbringings, different culture, different tribes and whatnot, but I feel we need to embrace ourselves as finding stuff that we can unite and embrace ourselves. We all understand, we always talk about the potential of Africa, the potential of what we can become. But until we actually decide to come together and speak in one voice and one unity, is when we can start calling the shots in regards to our future, what we want to sort of decide going forward and stuff like that. So I feel that would be my main aim, having 10K Africans, is to create a united force where we can start come up with ideas and concepts to help the issues that we have, so that we can then start becoming a force that the world can actually acknowledge and actually sit down and not try to exploit us, but actually want to negotiate with us.
Bryan, it's been incredible having you on. Like I said, I'm a follower of the channel and the space, and I look forward to the future moves that's being made. So thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me again. Appreciate the talk as well.
Thank you again for listening. Make sure to subscribe to us on iTunes, on Google Podcast, and make sure to rate us and review us. If you can, please donate to 10,000africans.com/donate. I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day. Have a wonderful week.